I really liked the first movie. I sat next to your dad. We saw it in the theater. When the stripper pole come up on the private jet and the stewardesses are dancing, I leaned over to his dad and said, we should have been weapons manufacturers.
Tonight, we hold our final panel on Iron Man and our first panel on alternate reality theater. We recast the franchise as we see fit. Types will be broken. The dead will be raised. And Morgan goes all retro up in here. This is They Call Me Uncle.
So, we ready to talk about the movies?
Do we dare?
Okay, so the movies. So what was interesting for me was before Iron Man 1, the closest thing I'd seen to Iron Man in TV or movies was a TV pilot called Exo-Man. I had to look it up. Came out in 1977. Me and my dad and probably my brother watched it. And I remember saying to my dad, well, I hope they make that into a series because that's as close to Iron Man as we're going to get. My dad said, no, he's too slow. And my dad was right. It didn't get picked up. It never got made into a series. When they announced that they were doing an Iron Man movie, I was really excited. And then they announced...
were you?
Well, I'll be honest, I
was petrified.
I had low expectations.
Okay.
Marvel up to that point hadn't done great with their movies.
Except Tobey Maguire. He's doing great right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tobey.
So
you were the when we were smaller.
So they announced that Robert Downey Jr. was going to be Tony Stark. And my first thought was, wasn't he the bully in Weird Science?
He was.
He was.
I've never seen him before, ever.
We're going to have to watch Weird Science. But yeah, Robert Downey Jr. was kind of an unknown, and that was the smartest decision he ever made, was to play Tony Stark. The things they really got right, they followed the origin story really close. They just updated it to Afghanistan. They did the gray armor really well. My favorite innovation was they put the power source in Tony's chest, which I hoped would make him the only Iron Man ever.
Because he was the power source.
Because the power source was actually part of him. So I thought that was brilliant. I thought the casting was good. Like I said earlier, I was surprised that Pepper was a big deal because reading the comics, Pepper and Tony weren't a big deal. And now I think in the comics they are. The comics are really following the movies now. And so really enjoyed the first movie. Ironmonger wasn't a well-known villain, but I thought it was appropriate. Introducing S.H.I.E.L.D. was cool. I wish they'd have introduced my favorite S.H.I.E.L.D. They gave you the later one. We're going to do a whole panel on S.H.I.E.L.D. at some point, so that'll be fun. So yeah. So what do you think of the first movie?
Really good.
Yeah.
Carter?
Well, we were teenagers at the time. I mean, it was something to watch. We had no idea that it would become this massive odyssey continuing all the way into adulthood.
I don't really think anybody thought that.
No.
Like, the first Iron Man was so good that it changed all of Marvel.
Yeah,
it literally changed the whole thing.
And at that point in Robert Downey Jr.'s life, he was doing like C-grade Disney movies.
Really?
Like the Shaggy Dog remake. You ever watch that?
No.
You ain't missing much.
So yeah, it was a game changer. Everybody went and saw it. They'd come and quiz me about it, but I had all positive things to say. I really liked it. Iron Man 2, I think they stumbled a little. Just with the villain. Justin Hammer, I thought the casting was fine, but they didn't really give him a lot to do. Whiplash was an odd choice. Mickey Rourke didn't really play Whiplash as much as he played the Crimson Dynamo. I think they should have just gone with the Crimson Dynamo or Titanium Man. If you're going to go armor on armor fighting and stuff, I'd have went with that. They did put Rhodey in the War Machine armor, and I thought they did fine with that. So, yeah, I didn't have a whole lot of issues with that one. The alcoholism, I think, was much more on display. I think a lot of people are critical of that movie. I think I really enjoyed it. What do you think, Carter?
I got kind of a sore spot for that movie because of the circumstances under which I watched it. I was the third wheel for my friend's prom date because my date had bailed on me for her boyfriend.
Well, that's not going to ever go well.
No, it didn't.
Dang.
Yeah.
What about you, Mace?
The second movie?
Yeah.
Good. I don't know. I don't remember much of it.
Okay. There were a couple things they slipped in there I thought were pretty good. Well, Black Widow.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
of course.
She had some of the best scenes.
That's probably what I remember most of it.
The briefcase, the armor in the briefcase was kind of a big deal in the comics, and so they did that. And then they did the silver and red armor in one scene, which was kind of the Silver Centurion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that was pretty good.
Like on the racetrack?
Yep.
Mm.
Yep. So then we got to the third movie. So we actually just watched it so that Mason would catch up.
I hadn't seen it.
One of my least favorite things in the whole Iron Man deal is disposable armor. And oh my gosh, they brought out a warehouse full of disposable armor. And that just hurt. And then at the end, he blew it all up. Just the whole disposableness of the armor really drags that one down for me.
It's like wrecking a Lamborghini in front of you with
Or
nobody in it, or a Bugatti.
Bugatti Veyron, man. Like my dream car got totaled in that movie. It hurt.
So picture your favorite car, nobody's driving it, and they hand you the keys and just put a brick on gas pedal and just run it into the lake.
Like I get
Anything.
emotionally involved when I see that thing in car chases because I'm like, oh God, is the Veyron okay?
Yeah. Well, and I get why he blows him up at the end, I guess, because he chooses love over and her because he lost her. And then no spoilers.
Well, and
No spoilers.
the weird part for me was my daughter saw the movie before I did. And she came home and said, well, Dad, the Mandarin was my favorite character. And I'm like,
for the reasons
what?
he wasn't our favorite character.
Yeah, but the Mandarin was comic relief. One of the things...
Give me some comic relief.
Carter, will you grab that? So this is what the Mandarin looks like in the comics. Every superhero kind of has a nemesis or a reoccurring villain. The Mandarin...
Orange.
I'm kind of surprised that he is considered Iron Man's nemesis. There's a cartoon movie of Iron Man, and they used the Mandarin in that. In the 90s, there was an Iron Man cartoon. It wasn't great, but the Mandarin was frequent in that. Now, I've heard that Season 2 is better than Season 1, but I haven't found Season 2. I looked on Disney Plus, and they have Season 1, but not 2. I plan on watching Season 2 one of these days. I usually like Iron Man best when he's with the Avengers.
Because he works as a team.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, we told you last time that one of the things is we're doing this for fun. If we sound critical of something, just our opinions. So one thing I always tell the kids is if there's something you don't exactly like, come up with a better idea. What's your suggestion? Don't just be critical. Let's cast Tony Stark, James Rhodes, Pepper Potts, Happy Hogan, and the Mandarin. And so we are now going to reveal our picks for who we'd cast and kind of why. Now, one thing, just like these guys said, you can pick anybody you wanted. And part of the reason we're doing that is we're going to talk about some people maybe you've never heard of, especially my picks. Well, we're hoping it inspires you to go out and look these people up and look at the things they did because we obviously were fans of them and hopefully you'll be fans of them. It's kind of going down the rabbit hole. Mason introduced me to Pinterest, I waste hours going down the rabbit hole.
Friggin' Pinterest.
But it's so fun. We're going to start with Mason.
No, I don't want to start.
Okay, we're going to start with Carter.
Okay.
I'm not ready.
Go
I'm
Carter.
prepared.
All right. Like, I'm full of inconsistencies in that I was given this free topic, like anyone living or dead, and I immediately imposed restrictions on it. So I imagine this alternate universe in the mid-90s.
Okay.
Like, I imagine Val Kilmer as Tony Stark.
Nice.
Just because the same qualities they hired him for Batman could have been transferred to Marvel before those movies even came out, the Batman ones, right?
Okay.
And for Colonel Rhodes, Keith David. Keith David from Platoon and Halo 2, of all things.
What did we just watch, though?
They Live.
They Live.
Of course, They Live. I should have
That's
opened with
exactly
that.
what I thought of.
And Chelsea, I know you're going to be watching this at some point. He was Goliath in Gargoyles.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
He'd be perfect.
Keep rolling.
All right. Oh, this is where it gets weird.
We can handle weird.
Yeah. Molly Ringwald for Pepper Potts.
Interesting.
Okay.
Because having spent a good portion of my adult life with the Marvel movies, I'm kind of poised to see Pepper Potts as the girlfriend. So I tried to forcefully steer myself into thinking of her as someone who's not going to hook up with Tony Stark.
Good call.
So I could see her as kind of like the embittered, kind of haggled secretary.
Cool. Okay.
And for Happy Hogan, that was like the easiest one to cast just because I thought, Chris Farley.
Chris Farley.
Like, I would have loved to see that. Could you just imagine Chris Farley just in a suit, trying so hard to be the bodyguard he's supposed to be?
Oh, yeah.
Just fed up with Tony's crap.
Okay.
And the Mandarin, Chow Yun-fat.
Oh, good call.
Who's that?
The viewers at home may know him for his series of John Woo epics in the early 90s and late 80s. Like, those things, they're beautiful. Like, just the way the gunfights are choreographed.
Well, and he's in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Indeed.
Yes.
Like, this would have been
That's probably
shortly before that movie would be made.
Yep.
In alternate La La Land.
Nice.
I could totally buy him as Mandarin.
Cool. No, those are outstanding.
I'm next.
Come and
Yeah,
do
you're
yours,
next,
and
sucker.
then you can go be there.
Stand and deliver. Sit and deliver.
Okay, my Iron Man would be John Stamos.
You know what? Yes, I like that.
Just because, I don't know why, but he could...
I can see it.
He needs to have like a darkness in one of his shows, and I think this one could put him over the edge. For Happy, I would choose... I always forget his name. Carter.
What was he in?
Hellboy.
Ron Perlman.
Ron Perlman.
You know what?
I'm going to put him in a lot of movies that I cast because he deserves
Ron
a lot
Perlman's the man.
Okay.
He would be happy.
I can
for sure,
see it. I couldn't before, but I see it.
because he's just a badass. For Rhodes, I don't know. I'll come back to it. For Pepper Potts, probably Emma Stone.
Yeah.
I like Emma Stone, and
That's
she
it.
seems to be...
I just watched Zombieland the other day.
Yeah.
And she does really
She
well.
does
in
good at like everything she does. I like
Yeah.
Emma Stone. And then the Mandarin. I didn't even know who the Mandarin was until we just watched the movie. So
Like half an hour ago.
I don't know. Anybody can be the Mandarin. I didn't even know who the Mandarin was until the very end because everybody was the Mandarin.
Well,
Yeah, it's like Spartacus.
So
Armed Spartacus.
I'd probably pick somebody who resembles Jafar from Aladdin.
You know what? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because he kind of has that creepy vibe.
And one of the things we're going to do, too, is Mason will edit in some pictures so you can see who we were talking about.
Yeah.
So,
I've already done it.
And if you
Sweet.
don't know who Keith David and
already
Ron
there.
Perlman are, shame on you.
Oh, Rhodes? Okay, Bruce Campbell. Boom. Done.
Bruce Campbell. Interesting.
Because he needs more.
I do like Bruce Campbell.
He needs more. Bruce.
Yeah, he needs
the
mentioned
man.
more.
Okay, so here's my picks. Tony Stark, I sat down, I actually reread the origin story, and they described Tony Stark as being cool and a ladies' man, and he was kind of like you just said, he was kind of Bruce Wayne. So I started with cool and said, okay, who do I think's cool? And the person that came to mind was Dean Martin. I would cast Tony Stark as Dean Martin. The movies that influenced that pick, go watch Rio Bravo with Dean Martin and John Wayne. Go watch Sons of Katie Elder, which makes no sense because Dean Martin's very Italian. And
just him in Westerns in general.
But him in Westerns is awesome. The Matt Helm movies, they're kind of spoofy, but I like them because they've got Dean Martin. Now, Dean Martin was a member of the Rat Pack. If you don't know who the Rat Pack is, go watch their stuff. I've never seen guys appear to have more fun hanging out and doing stuff together. They were all singers and actors. It was Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Lawford, Joey Bishop, probably more. So when I cast Dean Martin, Jim Rhodes needs to be somebody who's a really good friend, and one of Dean Martin's friends is Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis Jr. was in Sergeants 3 and Ocean's 11 with Dean Martin, and they were in the Cannonball Run stuff there towards the end of their careers, and it just seemed like those two really were sincere friends, and I think they'd have been fantastic as Rhodes and Tony Stark. Pepper Potts is somebody from the same era, and Anne Margaret. Anne Margaret was actually in Murderer's Row, which is a Matt Helm movie with Dean Martin. She's a redhead. She's beautiful. I think Anne Margaret alongside Dean Martin would have been fantastic. For Happy, I went with another Rat Pack guy. I went with Peter Lawford. Peter Lawford's in Sergeants 3 and Ocean's 11. And I could see him and Dean Martin working really well together as friends, and him being the bodyguard and all that. For the Mandarin, I was afraid Carter would pick the same person I did. Carter and I are big Christopher Lee fans. Christopher Lee can be any villain in any movie.
Dang, yeah.
And he played
That is
in
a
these
great
movies called Fu Manchu. Mask of Fu Manchu. There's like 3 or 4 of them. And in my mind, when you look at the Mandarin in the comics, you're looking at Christopher Lee playing Fu Manchu. So that was my pick.
Nice.
So that was fun. I put a lot of thought into it. I think Mason winged some of his. Carter thought about it.
I did.
So next time we're going right down the list on the original Avengers. So we did Iron Man. Next up is Thor, the mighty Thor. So for the casting, some of these you're going to be familiar with from the movies. Some only were in the movies a little, and one was only mentioned. So we're going to cast Thor. We're going to cast Dr. Don Blake. We're going to cast Odin, Jane Foster, Sif, Hogan, Fandral, Volstagg, and Loki. In the comics, those people I just named made up the majority of the ongoing cast of the Thor comics. All of them appeared in the movie except Don Blake. They used the name, they dropped the name in there a couple times, but no one was cast as Don Blake. And so those are going to be kind of fun. I worked out my picks as I was making the list. They're going to be interesting. And so, same with you guys. Anyway, that is our take on the Invincible Iron Man.
He died for your sins.
Dang it.
Perfect timing. The camera cut out. Perfect line to end on.
Thanks for joining us. This was Uncle's Basement Tapes. Part 2.
Yes.
Part 2.
Secret dancing. is what we're naming this one.
You can dance if you want to.
You can wear it all the time.
So, Elijah Wood is going to be my Thor.
You know what? Why not?
No, I was just
Whatever rocks your boat.
It'd be terrible. Sorry, Elijah.
We love you, but
Elijah Wood.
Probably Macaulay Culkin if he got ripped.
I keep thinking
that's a
of,
scary thought.
I keep thinking of these people that I want to cast and stuff.